it's Kira, happy Friday and welcome to another video. If you saw last week's vlog, you'll know that it was quite a rollercoaster of a week. It's only been a day since I last spoke to you, but just wanted to update on my pet rabbit Gatsby. If any of you are interested in his progress, he still seems to be improving, so all I can say is I am hugely relieved because I was definitely prepared for the worst, but it seems to be turning out a lot more positive than I expected, which means that I'm starting this weekend feeling very, very happy and just like so relieved. So happy Friday, I hope your day is going well as well. But it is actually my last Friday off work, so possibly the last time that I'm going to start one of these weekly vlogs on a Friday morning ready to enjoy a long weekend, because again, if you saw last week's vlog, you'll know that I'm starting a new job on Monday, which means I'm going back to my classic 5-day work week. But I'm super excited to start that job, but also very determined to enjoy my last 3-day weekend because I might as well make the most of it while I still have one. And with that said, I actually have quite a busy weekend, starting with a haircut today. I'm literally just about to leave the house to go and get a chop, so I feel like I booked this haircut appointment like literally months ago because obviously hairdressers are very hard to get appointments in, so I always like to try and book them as far in advance as possible. Now that I've found a hairdresser that I really like, because I don't want to miss out on my regular trim, but it just so happens that it has fallen literally the weekend before starting my new job, so that also feels like very like just like neat and tidy that I'm like gonna get a fresh haircut and then start a new job. I don't know actually what I'm gonna do with my hair this time. Last time I got a haircut, I wouldn't say it was drastic, but I definitely chopped quite a bit off and took it a lot shorter, and I also got some nice fringy bits, and I'm kind of tempted to get those fringy bits like a little bit shorter so that they're a bit more dramatic, but I'm not really sure what else I'm gonna do, so I guess we'll both find out together when I leave the hairdressers. But I'm heading out to do that now. Then the rest of my Friday is fairly chill. Then very excitingly, tomorrow my friend Katie from work, or from my old work now I should say, is coming down from Scotland to spend the weekend in York, and that is because we are both running the York 10k this Sunday. So that's very exciting, although a little bit nerve-wracking. You might know that I'm training for my very first half marathon, which is now only 5 weeks away, which is just so close. It kind of makes me feel a little bit sick. But because I haven't run in like a race for years and years, I think the last 10k race I did was in 2016, so it's been a long time, we thought it might be like quite good and smart to book onto a shorter race like a 10k, just to kind of like get back in the vibe and swing of seeing what like an organised race is like, and just sort of like getting into that mindset so that when we come to doing the half marathon in September, because Katie is running it as well, we'll have like a little bit more of like a recent experience with doing a big race like that. But on the subject of running, I thought I would actually mention that the reason I'm running a half marathon is obviously, first of all, because I wanted to take on that challenge and I wanted to achieve something that I thought was like definitely out of my comfort zone. But I'm also actually running the half marathon for a charity, and it is the charity that I used to work at but now no longer work at. But it is a charity that I think has such an incredible mission, and it's something that is very close to my heart and something that I've got personal experience with, and that charity is BEAT, which is the UK's eating disorder charity. So they work to provide support services and just support in general to people dealing with all kinds of eating disorders, whether that is like a diagnosed eating disorder and people who are going through like physical treatment with mental health and medical professionals, but also people who are just dealing with disordered eating or are starting to go down that track of having an eating disorder. And their mission is basically to make sure that no one has to suffer through an eating disorder alone. So I feel like I've touched on this a few times on this channel, especially in food videos, but a difficult relationship with food is something that I had a lot of experience with in my teenage years specifically, and it's something that I'm now very thankful to say that I don't deal with anymore. I now have such a positive relationship with food and with exercise, but there are so many people out there who obviously can't say that that is the case, and BEAT does such an incredible job to provide like resources and services for those people who are dealing with eating disorders, and also like their medical professionals, their parents, their teachers, who are also there to kind of support them through the journey. So I think BEAT is an incredible charity, but it's also one that not a lot of people know about, because I think whereas things like you know, Cancer Research UK or like Mind or Samaritans are charities that everyone recognises, and those kinds of illnesses are things that people have a lot of empathy for. I think with eating disorders it's something that people have a lot of misconceptions about, but also things that people only relate to or care about when they either have a personal experience or know someone who has. And so that is kind of the case for a lot of the supporters of Beat, is that they have that personal experience. And so I wanted to mention it in this video because I'm really passionate about making it a little bit more like known and a little bit less taboo to talk about eating disorders, because they are so common, but also like it's so important to get people the help that they need. So apologies for that excessively long ramble, but that is just to say I'm doing a training run this weekend with Katie, and in my description box down below we have a joint Just Giving fundraiser where we are trying to raise that money for Beat. So if you're interested in reading more about why we're fundraising, or of course donating, that would mean the world to me. Of course, if you are not in a position to donate, then please don't worry about it, but I just wanted to mention it here in case it's a cause that anyone else feels passionate about, or if you would like to donate, then that link is in my description box, and it would mean so much to me, and of course to Beat, who is just an incredible charity. So that is what I'm going to be doing this weekend: running, probably eating lots of good food, getting a haircut, and of course some reading. So let's get on to the book that I'm going to be picking up this weekend, because I'm very excited about it. It is A Reputation by Lex Croucher, which says, as if Bridgerton and Fleabag had a book baby, and I think that sounds like an incredible combination. The front looks like Bridgerton but a little bit more modernised, so I feel like whereas the Bridgerton book series is obviously maybe written for a slightly older audience, I'm guessing like the target audience of the Bridgerton books originally was like middle-aged women, whereas I think this one has taken that premise and then made it for a slightly younger, maybe like 20s, 30s audience, and so I'm very excited to read it. I was supposed to be buddy reading this with Em last week, but on account of Gatsby being ill and having just like so much to think about in that sense, Em started it and has already finished it before I've even begun, but she said it was incredible, so that has made me even more excited to get started on it now, and I'm going to be doing some reading of this later. And of course I am still making my way through An Island Wedding by Jenny Colgan, so I have two incredible romances, one more Regency style and one more modern, but both of which I'm certain I'm going to really enjoy. So that's what I've got on the cards this weekend, quite a lot, but like I said, making the most of my last 3-day weekend while I still have it. So without further ado, I'm going to go get the chop, so wish me luck and I'll see you when I'm done. like my last 3-day weekend, but it feels like it's going very, very quickly. Yesterday in particular just flew by because I got back from the hairdressers at about midday. Then me and Jay went off to go and do a little bit of shopping. Like I said, we were trying to find a Dutch oven for me to bake sourdough in. We found one in Lex Croucher, but it was so expensive, which made me so sad because it was pink and it was beautiful and I wanted it desperately, but I had given myself like a £25 spending limit, and the like medium sized one was I think £130, which is just insane when you consider that really you're just paying for the brand name there, because it is ultimately just a very hard, heavy ceramic baking dish with a lid. So I'm going to try and find one online, and maybe one day when I'm rich, if that ever happens, or for like a birthday present or something, I might get like a Le Creuset one because I do think they're beautiful, but I just could not warrant spending that much money on like a baking utensil yesterday. So we left that shop without actually coming away with anything, went and did a bit of food shopping, managed to get caught in a horrendous but also like very unexpected downpour. Like it was so sunny on our walk to the shop, and then on the way back I was literally like sweating, I was so hot, and then just out of nowhere this incredible downpour which was so heavy and soaked us to the bones, but very unexpected. But I kind of love it when rain just comes out of nowhere and like full force just like pelts down. So we got that rain shower, got some food for dinner, came home, and I made my cookies, which I don't want to be dramatic here, but they were a triumph. They were chocolate chip and pecan cookies, vegan obviously, and I've had trouble with cookies before where they either melt too much and then they all kind of join together in the tray, or they kind of like don't melt and spread out enough, so they just stay in like a ball format, which obviously isn't like what you want from a cookie. But these ones just did perfectly. They spread out just enough where it was like a nice cookie shape. It was like a chewy exterior with like a soft center. I loved the combination of like melty chocolate and then like crunchy pecans in there. So all in all, very impressed with how they turned out. And I'm like a serial burner for things like cookies and biscuits, because obviously they're only in the oven for such a short amount of time, and it can be like a difference of like 1 minute from them being absolutely perfect to being burnt, and I managed not to burn them, so I was feeling very pleased with myself. I did do a tiny bit of reading of Reputation while I was letting my cookies bake, but obviously they were only in the oven for about 15 minutes, so I managed to read 15 pages, and that's quite nice and matching of the time that my cookies were baking. What I read was interesting and I enjoyed it, although I'm still obviously at the very beginning of this book, where we have our main character Georgiana, who is staying with her aunt and uncle because her mum is ill, and I think her parents have moved off to the sea to try and like get her mum back up to health. So she's living with her aunt and uncle, who I think she thinks are quite boring, and she's not really enjoying her summer, and she's basically like wants to be a main character but she's not got main character energy. And then at a party one night she meets this girl called Frances who has main character energy to the max, and I think that is going to be the start of what will probably end up being like a wild and crazy summer where she has a great time and meets loads of new friends, but obviously in a Regency setting, but with like a very modern inspiration to like what the characters are like, and I guess like the friendship and the language styles. So I'm really excited to dive in and read more today, but right now, as per usual, it's Saturday morning, which means I'm heading out for coffee with Em and with Sarah. So I'm going to get myself some banana bread for breakfast, enjoy a coffee, maybe get some of Em's thoughts on Reputation, seeing as she's finished it already, and then when I get back it will hopefully be time to do some reading before going out later again with my friend Katie, who I mentioned is coming down from Scotland this weekend. So lots of things to do, which means that I think my weekend is going to continue to go at lightning speed, but I'm definitely going to make it my mission to do as much reading as possible before going back to work on Monday and starting my new job. Just back from my morning coffee, and I got home to a very exciting package from Bird and Blend Tea, who are my favourite tea company by far. They are the ones who did the advent calendar that I got last year, and I'm obsessed with that advent calendar. It was honestly the joy of December for me, along with the jam advent calendar that I had. It was so fun to open them up every day and try new flavours, and I think I enjoyed pretty much every flavour. So I really love their teas, and they were super kind to get in touch with me and offer to send me some to try. So now that I'm back just from coffee, I really fancy a cup of tea before I get on with some reading. So I don't know what's going to be inside this, but I'm definitely going to open it up and find out and then choose which tea I'm going to be taste testing. So without further ado, definitely should not point the knife towards myself. Okay. So first of all, I have two taster ones, and we have, oh, that sounds, oh, these are summery. Okay, so first of all, we have this one, which is strawberry lemonade, which sounds delicious. Then I also have this one, which is mojito, which is obviously mojito flavour, and I love a mojito. And then it says happy brewing. So now let's find out which flavours we have to taste. So these are all loose leaf teas except for these ones, which are tea bags. So first up we have Duvet Day tea, which is white tea with blissful coconut, jasmine, blossom and cinnamon. That sounds delicious. I mean, anything with cinnamon in is a win for me. That's number one. Next up we have blueberry pancakes, which I think speaks for itself and sounds absolutely exceptional. We also have gingerbread chai, and we all know I'm a big fan of anything chai, so again, it's got cinnamon, it's got spices. I think I'm gonna love that one, and I think gingerbread chai was definitely in the advent calendar, so I've tried that one before. This one sounds interesting. Okay, treacle sponge, a bird and blend take on the classic English pud. This one might be the one today because that just sounds like such a unique tea flavour. We also have milk oolong chai, so gingerbread chai is not enough, we always want to try more chai. And then finally, one that I think I'm going to enjoy, and that is tea and toast, because I've actually tried the Yorkshire tea toast and jam, and that's one of my favourite flavours, so I think this one will be very, very delicious because it's an English breakfast tea with sweet raspberry jam. So I think it's going to be the treacle sponge today because that just sounds really intriguing, and I'm going to make it with oat milk in, and I think I'm going to really enjoy it, but I'll catch up with you with a taste test in just a second. Before I do though, obviously we know that I'm reading Reputation, and I'm going to do some reading with this once I've brewed my tea. I've also kind of jumped the gun and bought Infamous, which is the second book in this series, and the reason for that is because, as I said, Em has read Reputation and loved it, and this one was on buy one get one half price, so decided to get it so that I could get it for cheaper because I'm fairly confident that I'm going to enjoy this one. So then Em and I just split the price and bought two of these on buy one get one half price. So I now have both, so hoping I really enjoy it, but for now it's time for treacle sponge tea and more of Reputation. I'm such a klutz.
I know.
Right, I actually was very strict with myself just then because, as you may know if you watch my tea advent calendar openings through last year's Vlogmas, I really just would normally make a tea and then drink it straight away. So when it's those more flavourful teas that you have to actually let brew, I always would get a less emphasised version of the flavour that it was trying to give because I would try to drink it too quickly. So I poured this cup of tea at 12:06 and it is now 12:11. So I've actually exceeded the guided brewing time just to make sure that I get a full pop of flavour. It is obviously a treacle sponge flavour tea, which is actually interestingly a green tea, including green tea, cocoa shells, aniseed, cinnamon, safflower and natural, that's a weird word to say now, natural flavourings. However, it does say brew without milk, but for me, I feel like, first of all, I do like tea with milk in it, and second of all, treacle sponge seems like something that should be like milky and creamy, so I've put some milk in it against advice, oat milk as per usual, and I'm going to give it a try. I also managed to make a massive mess pouring the loose leaf tea out, which is why I usually buy tea bags, but either way, it's got like a, interestingly, like a rooibos-y kind of smell, but I think that's probably the aniseed, because obviously, as I said, it's a green tea, not a rooibos tea, but it smells very warming, and that's what I like about rooibos tea. So even though this is a green tea, it thinks like it's going to have some of the warmth of a rooibos tea. So without further ado, let's try it. I think the milk was a good idea. Partially just to like cool it down because it is still quite hot, but also, like I said, I think that then like combines itself with the sweetness and then gives more of a creaminess, so that it actually kind of feels more like the experience of having like a cake or a pudding, whereas I think as just a green tea it maybe wouldn't have that, but it's got a really nice sweetness to it that you don't often get with a green tea, because green teas are often quite like fresh, whereas this one is more on the sweet side with those like warming spices, and I feel like it's quite a nice like delicate blend, which again feels good for a treacle sponge flavour tea, because a treacle sponge is quite like a simplistic combination of flavours but just very wholesome and hearty and warming, and I feel like those are all of the vibes that I'm getting from this tea. It's so interesting that you can put those flavours together and come up with something that doesn't taste anything like any of them individually. I think it's just so interesting how they like combine things together for these tea flavours, but that is really, really tasty. And it's interesting because if it wasn't called treacle sponge and I saw that list of ingredients, I might not have been that interested because I don't drink a lot of green teas, but that actually as a combination, and now that I know what it's kind of going for, which is the treacle sponge flavour, I think it's so tasty. So would definitely recommend that, especially for anyone who isn't a huge fan of green tea but wants to like try it out a little bit more. That is a really, really good one. So I'll link Bird and Blend down below. As I said, they were really kind as to gift me all of these teas, and I'm going to continue trying them in the next few videos so that we can get through all of those flavours. But I love their tea advent calendar, and I've never had a tea from them that hasn't been delicious. So if you are in the market for some new tea, I would definitely recommend trying them out because they are so, so great. Treacle sponge tea got even nicer the longer I left it. Just wanted to confirm that because it was tasty when I tried it, but still quite hot, and obviously I'd left it to brew for about 5 minutes, which was longer than the 3 minutes like advised, but I left the tea bag in while I was drinking it, and the flavour got even more intense and super, super delicious, because although like with some teas you can leave the tea bag in and the flavour can become like quite bitter and overpowering, this one being a green tea with like a lot of like sweet spices sort of blended in, although the flavours got stronger, it wasn't overpowering or bitter or unpleasant. So it was very, very tasty, and I also think cooling down allows you to notice the flavour a little bit more, because when a tea is piping hot, I think the first thing your brain notices is the temperature rather than the flavour. So very much enjoyed that tea, and we'll be having more of that in the future because it was a very, very, very nice flavour, and I also got to enjoy that whilst reading some of Reputation, which I'm now on page 101 of, and I'm really, really enjoying it. It's kind of giving me a brain itch though, because I feel like it's reminding me of something, but I can't quite put my finger on what exactly it's reminding me of. And I keep trying to think, what TV show is it reminding me of, or what like what vibe am I getting from it, and I just can't figure it out. The obvious comparison is Bridgerton, and that is absolutely true. It does have a very similar vibe to Bridgerton, but because that's such an obvious comparison, that's not the one that is giving me the brain itch. I just can't quite put my finger on what exactly I'm getting. But what I am really enjoying about this is that it is obviously a historical fiction, but not an accurate historical fiction, and it's one that you can very much tell has been written with a modern lens and for a modern audience, but with some of the I guess like aesthetic and charm of the Regency era without having to be bogged down by the like historic detail. And I know for some people historic detail is like super important, but I think as long as you go into historical fiction like this knowing that it is not an accurate historical fiction, then you can really enjoy it. I think the only time that's ever an issue is when a book is presented as an accurate historical fiction and then has like loads of glaring errors and like timeline issues, whereas this one you go in knowing that it is like technically set in the Regency era but not really, other than for the aesthetic and the like society elements. So I'm really liking that because it feels like it's pulling on things like Bridgerton and also stories like Jane Austen's, but also I guess like Jane Eyre would be a good example here, in the sense that we have not necessarily like, she's not an orphan, our main character Georgiana, but she is kind of like floating around and feels like she doesn't necessarily have like a solid place in society, and then starts to like become a little bit more grounded as the novel goes on. So I'm going to try my best at some point to try and figure out what connection my brain is making. I think it's definitely to a TV show rather than to a book, but I just can't picture it, but it feels very familiar whilst also being its own thing. So that's definitely causing me trouble, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm only about a quarter of the way in, but excited to see what happens, because when Em was talking about it earlier, she says that it starts off good, but when you get to about page 200 it really kicks off, and she said that she read the last 200 pages in one chunk because it was so good. So I'm very excited to get to that point. But right now I'm heading out for dinner. It's actually very early for dinner. It is currently only 4:10 in the evening, but on account of having the 10k tomorrow morning and in the past having like felt very sick doing a run the morning after going out for dinner, I wanted to go out for an early dinner so that I have plenty of time to digest all of my food, have a good night's sleep, and then hopefully feel ready to go for my run in the morning. So I'm gonna go out for dinner, and I think I'm gonna grab pizza and chips because not only is it one of my favourite meals, but it's also like a fairly safe dinner that I know is not gonna cause me any digestive troubles. So that's what we're gonna do, heading out for dinner, and it's a lovely evening as well. Very sunny, but not too hot, nice and mild, and I'm very excited to dig into some good food because, to be quite honest, all I've eaten today has been banana bread and 2 of the cookies that I made yesterday. So I'm excited to eat some real good food. Back from my 10k, I got my medal, my finisher shirt, and I got a 10k PB. Let me just officially check the time that I got sent through on text, and it says my York 10k finish time is 1 hour, 2 minutes and 37 seconds, and I think my previous 10k best time was like 1 hour, 3 minutes something. So I went, I got my PB, and I'm also feeling so much better now because I love to run obviously, but I get a lot of nerves for like events and things like that, and I just feel so sick and worried before them. And so this wasn't like my A race or anything like that, but I wanted to get a race in so that I could feel the atmosphere before my half marathon in 5 weeks. It's officially 5 weeks today that the half marathon is, so I feel a lot better because I went into today's race feeling so sick with nerves, but I did it, I got my PB, and I really enjoyed the atmosphere. So I'm now feeling a lot more like energized and like calmer about the prospect of my half marathon. And just another reminder that if you are interested in learning about who I'm fundraising for, which is BEAT, the UK's eating disorder charity, you can look at the link in the description box down below to check out my Just Giving page. But had such a fun time running with Katie and getting my PB, so feeling very happy now. But that is my Sunday pretty much done in the sense of actual activity. I'm now on at 19,000 steps, so I'm going to make myself a cup of tea, probably watch an episode of Bake Off, and then get on with an afternoon of chilling out and reading because I think I've deserved it. currently on my lunch break, but I wanted to catch up with you because I obviously started my new job this morning, so it is Monday lunchtime right now, and I'm having such a wonderful day, which feels like such a stark difference to last Monday, when probably around this time I was like devastated because Jay had just come back with Gatsby from the vet appointment and it wasn't looking good. But of course, as we all know, that has turned around now. Everything is on the up, starting my new job, and I'm just feeling very, very positive this Monday, which is always a nice feeling. It's so strange though, starting a new job, because I'm super excited to get started, but I think the one kind of like, I don't want to say downside, but like a slight quirk of working from home is that I left my last job at the end of last week and I started a new job this week, but I'm in the exact same environment in my own office. So it's like a very immediate change of pace, because you leave one job where you're like a very well integrated member of the team and you're like fairly important, involved in lots of projects, and like people are messaging you and emailing you often, and you just like have lots to do all the time with a very full schedule. And then you start a brand new job, and of course that's never the case to begin with, because you have to get integrated, do all of your like mandatory training, and just like get settled into the system and also get to know people. And while that's the case whether you work in person or online like I do, I think it takes a little bit longer to get integrated online, because it's not like I'm just turning up at the office and meeting people immediately. You kind of have to strategically and like periodically get introduced to people through like scheduling meetings and all that jazz. So far having a wonderful day, but it is so strange to be like setting up at my desk as I always do every single Monday, but completely different vibe, new laptop, and just, yeah, getting used to a new organisation. But I'm having a wonderful day so far, and I'm definitely excited to have cracked out a brand new notebook, because I took it upon myself to buy a new notebook to start my new job with, because quite frankly that was all the excuse I needed. But it's quite a simple notebook. It's just a like pastel pink colour with then like a gold rainbow on the front. But what I really liked about this notebook is the fact that it has dates at the top, like it has all of the months and then all of the days, and you can just circle which month and day you start the diary on, and obviously it doesn't mean that you have to use it every day. And I love that, because it's obviously a little bit less wasteful than a normal diary, where if I was to pick up like a standard, you know, 2022 diary now, it would obviously be like half empty, or I would like end up missing days because you're not in work every single day, you have the weekends, and it just seems a shame to waste all of that paper. So that diary is good, because you can still keep a clear track of like when and where you're doing things, but you get to decide which days you start and use it on, and you don't have to use it every day. So loved that. I got it in Waterstones in case anyone is interested, but have started my new job. I'm feeling very, very happy. And some other wonderful news is that before I started work this morning at 9 AM, I also made time to sit down with a coffee and finish the last few chapters of Reputation, which I absolutely loved. I think this book was so wonderful, and while I enjoyed it all the way through, I think it really did come into its own in the last like 200 to maybe 150 pages. It really like picked up the pace, and as well as having this great insight into our main character Georgiana, I feel like the other characters who had maybe been more on the sidelines in the earlier parts of the book started to come into their own a little bit more and became more prominent and more integral to the plot. And I just loved seeing some of those characters get a chance to shine, and it was just a really fun reading experience through and through. I did, almost immediately after speaking to you guys yesterday, come across a quote that I feel like really summarised what I was hoping to say in terms of how the book deals with Georgiana and her sort of journey with friendships, and maybe the emphasis that she puts on herself subconsciously to want to be liked and valued by people who she views as important. So in this case it's these wealthy and popular girls who she really wants to be valued by, but she doesn't necessarily share the same values as them. And I came across a quote that I think summarised that theme very, very well. So it is on page 301, and it says, "Listen, I know I must seem a terrible disappointment, but I don't think you understand. Coming here was like being reborn. I had resigned myself to the notion that life would pass me by, that there would be no great adventure, no close companions, no tales to tell. I would be nothing, nobody of importance to anybody in particular. I never dared dream of a life in which I might have friends like Francis and places to be and consequence. Perhaps it's unforgivable vanity, but I have now had a glimpse of that world, and I don't know how I could retreat into my old life and be content." And I just think that summarised it so well, that she has this like I guess, awareness of her own vanity and the fact that this isn't necessarily something that she wants herself to do, but then equally having had this taste of something that she never thought she could experience, she also like wants to grip it with both hands and never let go. And in that we obviously have this inner turmoil where she is like wrestling with her own conscience and her own values versus like this unshakable desire to be popular and to have this like incredible life. So really thought that quote summarised it so well, and I just thought this was a wonderful book. I rated it 4 stars altogether, and that was because it was a wonderful book but maybe got off to a slightly slower start, and then second of all, this might be just a consequence of my own lack of forgiveness, because I don't think I'm a super forgiving person. Like, I haven't had many instances where I've needed to forgive someone, so maybe I'm lucky in that sense, but I do think like in terms of my own moral compass, I'm quite like black and white about things that are okay and things that are not okay. And in this book, as I mentioned, we had some characters that were just like not very nice, and I feel like they did some absolutely despicable things towards the end of this book. And then our main character Georgiana, I feel like was just a little bit too forgiving, and these characters who did things that I just thought were horrible didn't necessarily have their comeuppance and didn't really have to pay the consequences for what they did. Now of course that could come down to the fact that it's a reflection of their position in society and that people of higher social standing at this time in particular didn't have to necessarily worry about their actions and consequences of actions as much as other people. But just because of my own like ability to look at these characters as either good or bad, or to see whether they have good intentions or not, I just felt like it was annoying that they didn't necessarily have to like pay the consequences for what they did. But aside from that, this was an absolutely wonderful book. I'm now super excited to read the next one, which is called Infamous, I think it is, but I'm interested to know whether that one is going to have any crossover with these characters, because from the blurb it seems like it has completely different main characters, but I wonder if any of our characters from this book will maybe be kind of like fringe characters. I'm hoping so, because it would be nice to get little bits of insight into their progression just from like a peripheral point of view. But even if it is completely fresh, I have no doubt that I'm going to enjoy that book as well, because this one was so much fun to read. So I'm now going to finish off my cup of tea, get back to the second half of the work day, and then I'm sure in the evening me and Jay will head out for a walk, watch some episodes of Dark, and then tomorrow morning I'm actually covering a super early yoga class at 6:45 AM, so probably going to try and get an early night. But I do want to carry on my reading of An Island Wedding. I was hoping to like split my time between the 2 books over this weekend, but the Reputation book just completely gripped my attention, so haven't given any focus to this book, but I'm hoping to do some reading over the rest of the week, and maybe I can find some more time like I did this morning to do a little bit of pre-work reading over the next few days and hopefully tick that one off this week as well. This week is going very, very quickly. So it is currently Thursday afternoon. I've just finished work for the day. So obviously with my old job, this would have been the start of my weekend, but with my new job, I have one more work day left. But I don't know if it's just like first week energy or something, but although I have an extra work day than I have been used to for the last several months, it actually feels like the week has gone exceedingly quickly. Also might have something to do with the fact that although I'm working 5 days, I'm actually only working 1 extra hour a week. So in my last job, the full-time contract was 34 hours, that's what everyone was on, and at this job it is 35 hours but spread across the 5 days, so I feel like my days feel a lot lighter than they did when I was in my old job. So I suppose both have their benefits, but I'm definitely enjoying having a slightly more chilled out week in terms of like before work I have a little bit more time to like do some reading or watch some TV because I don't have to start as early, and then I feel like I have more evening time as well because yeah, I can finish sooner while still effectively doing more hours of work, but it just doesn't feel like more because of the way that it's spread. So all that to say, it's almost the end of the work week, but not quite, and I'm having a really great time in my first week at this new job. I also, on account of having more time in the mornings to do reading and whatnot, have managed to finish An Island Wedding. I finished this one at lunchtime today actually, and I enjoyed this book, but I must say I'm feeling slightly underwhelmed and disappointed by it, which is not the reaction I was hoping to have from this book, because as I mentioned when I started this one a couple of weeks ago, I love Jenny Colgan, and more specifically I love her Island series, which has obviously got the 2 Christmas Island books but other ones as well, and I've really enjoyed all of the Island books, and this one I enjoyed, like I can't deny that, but whereas the 2 Christmas ones, so An Island Christmas and Christmas at the Island Hotel have just felt so magical and cozy and wholesome, and I've just been like sort of one setting readings of those ones where I've literally just like sat down and pretty much devoured the entire thing in one go. This one just felt like a book that I didn't feel quite as motivated to read. Like obviously the previous weekend I prioritised Flowers in the Attic, and then this weekend I prioritised Reputation, and I just felt like I haven't felt that like burning desire to pick this book up that I've had with her other Island books. And it's a shame because I really did like have such high expectations for this one, but there was just something slightly lacking in it where it just didn't have quite the same warmth or wholesome vibe that I got from her other ones, and I'm wondering if that is simply because this one is not set at Christmas time, and maybe it's just the combination of Christmas and like just cozy vibes that makes the Christmassy ones in this series feel like book versions of Hallmark movies, which is what I always say. And now that I'm saying that out loud, it kind of makes sense, because a Hallmark movie is the kind of thing that you'd only watch at Christmas time, and the cheesiness and the cliches and the predictability is all kind of like thrown out to one side, or even adds to the experience because it's about Christmas, and therefore like your expectations are kind of like measured and what you're looking for is the festivity. Whereas in this one it has all of those same features, I guess, but the fact that it's not Christmas time and not festive and there's no festivity in the book as such, it just doesn't have that same appeal that I was hoping for. So slightly disappointed, but I finished it so I can't complain too much. But yeah, it wasn't the reading experience I was hoping for, but it was a reading experience nonetheless, and I'm forever grateful to just be able to like read books at the moment, because as you all know, I've had a few months of not reading anything at all. So the fact that I've gotten through like 3 books in the last couple of weekends, I'm feeling very happy, even though 2 of them I haven't loved. Reputation I did love, and then Flowers in the Attic and this one kind of, well this I just want to clarify actually, because I shouldn't have categorised them together. This book was way better than Flowers in the Attic, and I would recommend this to people who are just looking for something like light-hearted and fun. It just didn't quite live up to my expectations. Flowers in the Attic, however, desperately did not like. So feeling very pleased to be back on with reading, even though I have had a couple of misses, but on the whole definitely enjoying books again and just like glad to be getting through them. So feeling very positive, and just wanted to come to you and conclude this reading vlog with that book now that it's finished, and now that the next weekend is almost about to start, because I have lots and lots of things planned this weekend, including a mammoth day of baking. I've bought several ingredients this week and I'm going to be trying out a few different recipes, including my sourdough, which I think is finally ready to turn into some sourdough bread. So lots of baking coming in the next vlog, and hopefully lots of reading, although I'm hoping for like the autumn vibes, but I must say it is boiling hot today. I'm just going to check the temperature actually on my weather app, because I am dismayed at the temperatures that we are facing right now. It is currently 33 degrees Celsius, which is disgusting in my opinion. It is meant to be like 30 for the next few days, and then it drops down into the lower 20s towards the end of next week. So I'm just waiting for that cooler weather and the rain. Just like, it can't come soon enough, because I'm just so over summer, I really am. Autumn, spring, yes please, but summer, baking heat, and just like all of the grass is just going brown because it's so dry at the moment, and I'm just not here for it. So hoping to like create my own autumn vibes by having a baking and reading weekend this weekend. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have had a lovely week wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one.